Hey guys, it's Brodgi. It's finally October, and you know what that means. Halloween! Halloween is that special time of year where kids are dressing up as their favorite characters and getting candy, while us real men are soiling our britches watching Spooky Buddies. And to help celebrate this scary season, I invited a special guest to today's episode. Everybody welcome, Ghoulie! Say hi to everybody, Ghoulie. He's a little shy. Now, this wouldn't be a proper Halloween video without one video game, Luigi's Mansion. Luigi's Mansion was released alongside the GameCube on September 14th, 2001. This was strange as most Nintendo consoles prior to the GameCube launched with some sort of big Mario or Zelda game to help sell the console, but Nintendo decided to do something different this time around by releasing a game focusing on Mario's brother Luigi. This was an odd choice, especially since at the time Luigi was nothing more than a reskin of Mario for Player 2. But this game decided to give him his scaredy cat personality, which would define his character for the next 20 years. The risk ended up paying off greatly, as the game ended up selling 2.5 million copies, making it the 5th best-selling GameCube game of all time. Oh, and look, while I was busy ranting about the Luigi game, Ghoulie made us a pizza. Thanks, Ghoulie. Not right now, Ghoulie. This game's story isn't super crazy, but fun enough to make you want to see the end. It starts out with Luigi going to the mansion he won in a contest he didn't enter. We may need to teach Luigi some lessons in cybersecurity before we let him on the family computer. So Luigi walks into his new mansion and finds it dark and abandoned. Then he sees a ghost that then goes into the next room. He goes in to explore and investigate and finds a senile old man who is constantly having a stroke with a vacuum cleaner trying to hunt the ghost. They then get overwhelmed and run back to the man's lab. He reveals his name as Professor Egad. He then tells Luigi that he has lived in this lab for many years and the mansion has just popped up recently out of nowhere. Egad then gives Luigi the vacuum and Luigi is sent on his way. Your goal is to hunt down these special ghosts called the portrait ghosts, who all have their own personalities and ways to expose their weak point. These ghosts are parts that many people really enjoyed about this game, and their removal in Dark Moon on the 3DS angered many, as I thought it removed much of the personality of the game. Early on in the game, you end up finding Boos who are hiding in the mansion, and you have to hunt all of them down to weaken them to defeat King Boo. You also later find out that King Boo has trapped Mario in a painting, and Luigi must save him. This story is very interesting for the Mario series, especially since during this time, the Mario series didn't break away from the captured princess story as often. Not now, Ghoulie, I'm talking about Mario! The gameplay of this game is a very far departure from the usual Mario gameplay, mostly because of the fact that there is no jumping or really any platforming in the game. Instead of jumping, your main form of attack is a flashlight and a glorified vacuum you get at the start of the game. You use the flashlight to stun the ghosts, so you can then suck them up using the poltergust. The combat is very unique to this game, and you don't see much like it in other games. The game does a really good job of making you feel the struggle between the ghost and Luigi as he tries to suck them up in his vacuum. There are also plenty of different types of ghosts that all attack and sneak up on you in different ways. Some try to creep up behind you and grab you, some appear right in front of you and immediately try to hit you in different ways, and some stay in one place and try to trip you up with items like banana peels. And of course there are more than just the normal enemy ghosts, there are also the portrait ghosts I talked about earlier. These are the ghosts you need to defeat to progress in the game, and they are very fun to hunt down. Once you find the room that they are in, you have to think of a way to expose their weak point by using the hints the game gives you. Sometimes it is very easy to find their weak points, but sometimes it's very cryptic and really makes you think. I really enjoyed some of the harder ones, because I felt like I really had to think and combine clues that the game has shown me by the room they are in, their designs, and the information you get from scanning them with the Game Boy Horror, which is used as your map and scanner to find clues. And when you reach the end of a section of the game, you get to fight a portrait ghost that are more boss-like than others. These are very fun, and like regular portrait ghosts, make you think about how you need to approach them to show their weak points so you can defeat them. The boss ghosts also tend to do more damaging attacks than usual portrait ghosts, making them a fun change of pace from the usual ghosts you hunt down throughout the game. The only negative thing I have to say about the gameplay is capturing the 50 boos hidden around the mansion. Once you release the boos from their hiding spot, they spread around the mansion, and you have to find at least 35 of them to beat the game. This wouldn't be so bad if you just captured the boos like normal ghosts, but instead they can just move around freely while you're attacking them, so you have to try and follow them around while you're attacking. But they can also go through walls into different rooms, or sometimes they go into rooms you haven't even unlocked yet. Later on in the game I was hunting a boo and it just kept going between the same two rooms over and over again, and it took me way longer than it should have to get that boo. But besides the boos, the gameplay and ghost catching are very, very fun. Now, gameplay alone is not what makes this game so great. One of the main appeals of this game is the theming and design of the mansion. The mansion is designed to where you slowly unlock more and more rooms as you get more keys by defeating ghosts and clearing rooms. At first the mansion seems very small, but slowly opens up as you collect more keys until the mansion seems much bigger. Overall, the mansion is small compared to other games, but the game's focus is to be more replayable to get a better end ranking, which depends on how much money you gather throughout the game. You get money from defeating portrait ghosts, clearing rooms, finding chests, and searching objects inside the mansion. There's so much money that you can find in this game that I ended with $40 million and only got the E rank of the game, and the ranks go all the way up to S. Including all of the money you can find in the game, there are also completely optional portrait ghosts, which aren't required to beat the game, but still fun nonetheless. There are many secrets in the game, many that I'm sure I didn't even get to, which encourages more replayability, which this game puts a very large focus on. Another part of the game that is very well done is the theming of the mansion. The game is able to have a more realistic style than most Mario games, but still being cartoony enough to make everything fit with the other games. While I wouldn't say that the game is scary, I think the game is able to keep a more creepy atmosphere than most games in the Mario series, giving this game a very distinct feeling from other Mario games, and even other Luigi's Mansion games, as they become more cartoony as the series went on, losing less of the creepy atmosphere and becoming more cartoony than the original, which I think is good in its own way. The game is also really good at showing Luigi's emotions and fear. The main theme has parts where it pauses so you can hear Luigi nervously humming along with it to try and comfort himself. Luigi also jumps and freezes for a second when a ghost pops up to show how he is truly scared during the events of the game. You are also able to scan objects in the mansion, and you get to see what Luigi thinks about the objects or things in the mansion. All of these little things combined give this game a really good tone and atmosphere that is a nice mixture of comedic and creepy. Shut up, Ghoulie. Once you have finally captured all of the required portrait ghosts and boos, it is finally time to move on to the final boss. You start out by moving through a small hallway in the basement, which leads you to the room where King Boo has been lurking the entire game. You walk up to see that he has Mario captured in a painting. He says some very scary ghost stuff, and then turns the room around and reveals that he has a Bowser hidden in the painting. It's actually a doll of Bowser, and the game does a bad job of explaining that, and may have terrified some younger children. This boss is actually pretty cool. At first it seems like your usual Bowser fight, but then you knock his head off and it becomes more of a normal ghost fight. The main gimmick of the fight is hitting Bowser with bombs that he throws at you, exposing King Boo, and trying to capture him in the poltergust as fast as possible before he goes back into the Bowser doll. The fight is very quick if you're even somewhat decent at the game, but it is still fun nonetheless. Once you defeat the boss, you go back to Egad's lab and convert your final ghost into paintings. After this, we get a really cute scene of Luigi's reaction to Mario being saved from the painting. After that, the Best Nintendo Credits theme plays, and you get to see your ranking based on how much money you got. Now, even though the game's story is over, there's still one more thing we need to look over from the game. Back in 2018, a port of Luigi's Mansion for the 3DS was released. This game mostly ran just as well as the original, but had some frame drops here and there due to it being on weaker hardware. That is unless you play the multiplayer. Don't play the multiplayer. Overall, the game is mostly the same except for some texture and model changes. The gameplay is mostly the same. The controls can be pretty frustrating if you're playing on an earlier model of the 3DS that doesn't have the second control stick, making you have to use the D-pad, which just doesn't feel good at all. But if you aren't able to play the original version of the game, I still completely recommend picking up the 3DS version, because it does the job well enough. The main problem with the game is the fact that the Switch had been out for a year, and they decided to port the game to 3DS, even though they could have made a genuine improvements to the game by putting it on the more powerful Switch. At the end of the day, no matter which way you experienced it, this game is a classic. even though the console it was on didn't do as well at the time because it was going against giants like the PS2. But even though this game wasn't the most popular at the time, it still sold well, and from the theming to the gameplay, this game masters it all, and provides one of the most unique and replayable experiences in Nintendo history. You know what, Ghoulie? I've been a bit of a rude host. I'll touch the pizza